Hi, and welcome to Over the Gunsmith's Shoulder. I'm Gene Kelly, president of the American Gunsmithing Institute, and in this segment, Master Gunsmith Ken Brooks is going to walk you step by step through a gunsmithing repair. You're going to learn a lot. And if you'd like to learn to be a certified professional gunsmith, then go to AmericanGunsmithingInstitute.com and request an information package. Now let's learn from Ken.
Well, we're back for you guys to look over my shoulder again. Cool. So I grabbed a Smith & Wesson off the rack, for the bench. Smith & Wesson 29, the tag says, actually I'm not even going to look at my tag, I'm going to look at the complaint that they wrote out. When firing, cylinder will lock up and not rotate. Worked on by another Smith. I'm finding nothing wrong. AGI student would like some help. Help me out. Cool. So let's get the tag off here and out of the way so it's not in the way and getting wrecked and whatnot. I know, of course, that the gun is empty, but one thing I noticed right off the bat is when I push the thumb piece in to release it, hope you guys can see that, its return is not, it's kind of spongy. It doesn't feel right. It's not in and out. It's in and out, in and out. So I don't know if that's, the thumb latch feels fairly easy, but the center pin feels like there's a lot of grease in it. You know, you push something in, if there's grease, it's kind of mushy, if you will. So when he's shooting, the cylinder locks up. I also like to look at the barrel cylinder gap. The white pegboard in the background allows me to do that. I'm going to push the cylinder forward and see if it's going to touch the barrel, and it does not appear to. Yeah, we got plenty of barrel cylinder gap. So when it fires, the cylinder is not rubbing the front of the face of the cylinder is not rubbing the back of the barrel. Could be that the distance between our cylinder and the breech face at the top is close to or tighter than, well, we want it tighter than the distance from the back of the cylinder and the breech face below the center point. So my Smith & Wesson class, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So if the gap here, where the firing pin is larger than the gap down here, when the gun goes off, the cartridge expands, pushes back against the breech face. As you pull the trigger and the cylinder rotates, that shell's sticking back as far as it could. As it continues to rotate around, again, if our gap at the bottom is tighter than up here, that shell that's expanded is going to drag on the breech face. So you always want your distance between the firing pin and the back of the cylinder up here to be tighter than it is down here. So I'll check that in a little bit with some other stuff. The extractor rod, you can see we got some, I don't know what it is, rust or crud. We already know that our center pin is gummed up. We got some nice shiny marks right here and up here on the trigger. Same thing over here. So the back could be from just pulling the trigger, but the front up here, it never touches anything. So when they mentioned in the note that a previous Smith has been working on it, somebody's been working on it. Somebody's been doing something. So since it binds up and we know that, boy, that thumb piece and the center pin is gummy, really gummy. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to want to take apart. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing. Let's check the timing. I don't know if you could hear the click. A little bit of drag on the cylinder to replicate a fired case, dragging across the breech face. Sorry, I'm chewing on my tongue tonight. Once the hammer goes to full cock, the cylinder should be locked in position. Now I'll be quiet so you can listen as I rotate the cylinder. The cylinder stop will pop up into the cylinder stop notch in the cylinder. Hope you could hear it. So we're a little slow, not life or death. See, now that one wanted to time up. So did that one. That one's a little slow. That one's a little slow. That's 3 of them that are slow. 4 of them that are slow. 2 that are okay. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. What I really want to do is get that cylinder apart. That center pin is really gummed up. And this is one of the new ones. It's not your classic old Smith & Wesson, which is too bad. The older ones are so nice. Yeah, there's a tackiness to this on everything. So I'm going to want to clean that off. So I got to head over to the vise to clamp that extractor rod to unscrew it from the cylinder. So we're going to break and get set up so you can see that in just a minute. All right, so sometimes these extractor rods can be really tight. So you got to kind of work with it, if you will. Now, somebody else has been inside this gun, so hopefully they didn't tighten it up too much, and there's whatever's gummy and tacky, hopefully that's the residue of some sort of rust preventative. I'm hoping that the extractor rod's not going to be super tight. So a lot of times I'm going to want to twist it back and forth, back and forth. This is a new gun, brand new gun, so this has the lawyer lock. We're going to want to twist the cylinder clockwise. So once it's loose, we literally come apart. All right, so now that everything's loose, we can pull our extractor rod, oh my word, center pin, spring, bushing, the ratchet pads and extractor out. And you heard me groan when I pulled the center pin out, because you can look on there, it's like dried grease or oil. It's extra gummy and won't even fall out. Push it down flush, won't even fall out. So I think a big part of what's going on here is just that this thing's just got gummy, dried up crud on it. Use caution when you're using your various solvents and whatnot. I end up getting some on my hands from time to time. And I try to keep most of that stuff off of me. Again, it's a gummy film that's on this. So once I get it cleaned off, grab a cleaning rod and a brush. I'm going to put a little oil on this. Not too dirty, got some crud on it. Wipe some of that oil on there. Now, without putting anything else in there, see how man, that spins so much easier. I know it's hard to tell you. Hey, feel that, it feels so much better. Oh wait, you're on the camera. I think you can see that it spins freer. Hopefully you can. So next thing I'm going to do is the same type of deal on our extractor rod and ratchet pads. Clean out the underside of the ratchet pads. I'm going to get a pipe cleaner and dip it in a solvent here. Run it back and forth to clean that out. I'm going to put a drop of oil in there or 2. And using the other end of the pipe cleaner, the one without the solvent on it, run it back and forth. It's roughly machined. I can feel the roughness. It's not binding up like dried oil. It's just has some rough machining to it. Yeah, we're still good there. Look at our spring. I'm going to pull the bushing out. Our oily patch, I'm going to use to clean off the various coils. I'm cleaning all the enclosed coils on this other side first. And then turn this around. Get a little more oil on there. I'm using some good oil as opposed to solvent because I don't want my fingers soaking in that solvent while I do this. And that oil will clean off most of the crud on the, any of the springs like this. Come on now. Another thing that works really good for this, I happen to have this patch and that's the reason I used it. It already had oil and stuff on it. But old socks, don't throw your old socks away. Get them washed, bring them to the shop. And then a lot of times, bigger springs, shotgun magazine springs, big shotgun action springs, big like A5 recoil springs, cut a hole in your sock, or the reason you're throwing it away is it's already got a hole in it, right? Start threading that spring through the hole and do the same thing I did just here, just kind of clean it up some. Since I got that oily rag. Now if there was rust on this or something I was really concerned about as far as needing it to be a little more in-depth cleaning, then yeah, I'd be using heavy-duty solvent and a brush, some hot water, probably some simple green to get things cleaned off. So I gotta look over the top of my glasses because I'm getting old and some of my bifocals don't fit quite as well as they should. So I'm going to dip that in the solvent, and now I can use that patch to clean some things off. It's not gummy. I can tell it's roughly machined, but it all, yeah, see, it's wanting to fall out. Remember, it wouldn't even fall out there. It kind of catches a little bit. Got some oil on there. It's just rough. It's almost like that sandblasted. That spring's actually okay, I believe, but since I've got it here, I've got it apart, just to alleviate the possibility of that spring causing problems, I'm going to twist it through the oily patch. Clean down inside that yoke affair. So another thing I like is Q-tips. Some of that lacquer thinner in there. Clean off the inside of that end. So you got some crud in there. That was a white Q-tip a minute ago. I mean, it picks up some color from the dirty solvent, but not all of it. Spin that back down. Okay, so obviously it's not tight. I'm going to have to do that in the vise, but before we have to change camera angles and whatnot, I'm going to put everything back together. Boy, that's nicer already. And I can check it quickly in the gun. Oh, look at that thumb piece snap back now. Yeah, remember it wouldn't do that before. So that's part of it already. Yeah, we're spinning so much freer at this point. All right, one other thing I want to do before we get carried away, one last thing I want to check. Need a flat surface with our extractor rod as tight as I can by hand. Going to compress it, and we want it flush or slightly above right here. Looks pretty good. Oh, there we go. Maybe a little rough. The end of the extractor rod's a little rough. So what I think normally what I would do, and I'll do it here for you guys too, is I would take this over to my little lathe, and well, if I can get it apart now, maybe I tighten it up. I can't get it apart ever again. Put it back in the vise. And I would break that edge, put a 45-degree angle all the way around this so it can turn off the locking bolt in the barrel, and polish the end of that center pin. So let me get this broke apart, and we'll go over to the little lathe and get it all polished up. What I've got here is a couple different grits of sandpaper that you can see I've been using for a long time, but usually I'm doing screw heads and little teeny small parts and pieces. A little heavier grit, and my files. A lot of times my files aren't used for filing, they're used for backing. So I just need to do the face on that center pin with that one, and then this little finer grit, and then we'll take a look at it and see where we're at. And a lot of times with the finer grit, like 400 grit, I'll polish the sides just a little. And now we can take a look and make sure there's no machine marks and that it's polished out. So one other thing that I'm going to do is this back end. This is the part that enters the frame. And the locking bolt pushes on that with the thumb piece. So normally I don't fool with these much. You don't want to, because you want this diameter to be fairly snug, tight. But remember how it looks and felt rough, and it looks sandblasted almost? I'm going to polish this just real quick by hand, and what I mean by hand is I'm going to put it back in the lathe. I'm going to polish just this little area here with the sandpaper using my hand, and it's just to get some of that roughness off there. We don't want to shrink the diameter of this. So again, some 400 grit sandpaper, round over that back a little bit, or polish that back, not round it over. Just to take off that roughness. This one I don't have to take out of the lathe for you to see. It's a lot shinier than it was. We're not talking a whole bunch of material that we're removing, just polishing it up so it's smooth, can transition back and forth inside the extractor and ratchet pad assembly and enter the frame like it should. Just be freed up. So let me get it out of there and get the extractor rod in there. All right, so in this view you can see the extractor rod in the knurled section. Like I said, I like a 45-degree angle on the outside, and then polish the end of it a little bit. I'm going to use a little sharper file for this one, and get that cleaned up. I'm going to use the heavier grit sandpaper for the back for that 45 degrees. Then the smoother, finer sandpaper, same type of deal. And I don't mind shortening it just a hair, because it's okay if the center pin sticks out past flush when the thumb piece is pushed all the way forward. That's okay. So if I take a little bit off of there, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. But you can see how it's polished, got a 45-degree angle. This should work in the gun so much better. I'm going to pull it out of here and see you at the vise, because I'm going to screw this back together. You don't need to see me do that, and then tighten it up in the vise. All right, so cylinder ready to be screwed onto the extractor rod. There's also some other barf marks, for lack of a better term, on the gun that I'm a little concerned about. The scratches on the face of the cylinder, I don't know what those are from. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if, I don't know. That happened, you know, the previous Smith, whatever. So anyway, I have it all put back together. Let me get over here at the bench. All right, so I'm going to put the cylinder in the crane assembly. Free to move. Extractor rod works good. I'm going to press it down on the flat here. Make sure that our extractor rod comes flush or above the extractor excuse me, the center pin comes above or flush with the end of the extractor rod. It does. Put that back in there. And again, that thumb piece snaps. Feels like it should. Yeah, a little better. So, cylinder seems to be squared away for the most part. I'm still going to take it apart because I'm curious about the insides. I want to see what's been going on, because something's all screwed up on the inside. Not necessarily screwed up, but I can see where the scratch marks on the trigger. So I just want to see what's been done to the inside. Let me look at something else here. Oh, okay. All right, so I don't know if you can see it well enough in this view, but this firing pin is not happy. Pissed off, you might say. It's got some flats, some gouges, some points, some sharp edges on it. Yeah, not happy. So that firing pin's going to have to come out of there. We can't have it hitting the primer and tearing, ripping, causing issues with the primer. So I'm going to take the side plate and the grips off, obviously, and get it apart. But yeah, that firing pin is ugly, and I don't know what they used on this. They got congealed WD-40 or something. It's yuck. All right, we're gonna take the grip screw off, and I really like these grips. They feel really nice. That's personal preference, obviously. Come on now, and get my fingernail in there. There we go. There we go. Round butt. This is one of the ones that they got the rounded on. Oh, good. Trying to replicate a 4-screw. I say replicate because the original 4 and 5 screws are so cool. So now, before I do anything, I just want to look at this. I'm kind of feeling for some of that crud that's all over everything. I'm using my oily rag to wipe off some of this stuff. Safety doesn't feel too bad. Now we can look at the insides. What has been going on? So, ooh. All right. Well, one thing we can see right off the bat is that here's a shim right here. See that? And they sell shims, so you can put shims on here to keep your trigger from sliding back and forth. The students from my Smith & Wesson class know how much I love little shims, little things that can peel and come apart and bind up your action. I love them. I put those in all my guns. Not. Clearly a little bit of sarcasm there. I'm not a fan of those. If they want them, if there's a lot of left to right play and you're going to put those in there, that's fine. Be aware, they're little 2-3 thousandths thick shims, and that little paper's thicker. They catch, they tear, they bind. And when they do, sometimes they bind up the gun and then it quits moving, quits working. So there are other ways to tighten up the triggers and the hammers and various things. So yeah, I'm not a shim guy. I don't care for them. I put them in if the customer absolutely positively requires that they be in. That he specifically says, here's shims, or get the shims, and I want the shims in. And I will explain that I don't like them and why, and that there's other ways to do it that are better and how. But again, customer has the final call. I would not do it on a defense gun, period, hands down. Can't have something going belly up when lead's coming your way. Your gun has to function. So, all right, so now I'm going to take out the mainspring. Let's see if this screwdriver will work. It will. Looking to make sure there wasn't a shim on the back side of anything. I don't know what's going on here. I don't understand the purpose of the trigger being all chewed up and the sides of the hammer. Now, I get it if you're trying to smooth up how the gun and the action feel, but you're going to smooth those surfaces up, then you're going to polish them, you're going to buff them, so they are smooth and precise, and this is not. And parts that rub against things, the face of this hand drags in the frame, it's not polished. None of the hand is polished. The top here where the double action sear hits, and then here, none of that's polished. The face of this double action sear is not polished. The bottom's not. Where the rebound comes, I mean, there's nothing polished as far as smoothing up the action. I literally don't know why this has been, and it almost looks like they just drug a stone across it a little bit. I just don't understand the reasoning there. So one of the things I like about the new ones, the new Smith Wesson revolvers, is you can pull out the retaining pin that retains the firing pin. And then the firing pin will come out the back. Just using my dental pick to pull it out. Wow. So the firing pin spring is dirty with like carbon, which doesn't surprise me. The firing pin tip itself is just rough and just bad. Just bad. And so I'm guessing that when they shoot it, this sucker tears through the primer, probably pierces the primer. We got a lot of carbon here, so the primer is deteriorating and all the gas and stuff is blowing back into the firing pin, deforming it, filling the firing pin and the spring and the whole face here with carbon. And when that primer deteriorates and flows back, it flows around the firing pin and the firing pin hole. So that deteriorated and perforated primer, bits and pieces of it are sticking in the firing pin hole. When you pull the trigger, the cylinder's trying to rotate and shearing off the remains of that primer that are stuck in the hole. So that is probably the biggest reason for his failure to rotate or the cylinder binds up, would be my guess. And it could simply be, I mean, it could be that the firing pin was slightly deformed or incorrect originally, and then he shot some hot loads, which would contribute to this, and that helped it. It could be that that he shot some that the firing pin was perfect when it started, and the hot loads have deformed it. But chances are this was a little on the flat or the pointed side. I've seen some of the newer Smith & Wessons that got a real fairly pointed firing pin. Don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put this in the little lathe, and it might even have a little bend to it. Spin a little bit. I'm going to polish and recontour that. I'm going to have to take some material off. So when I'm done, we may have the problem of the firing pin doesn't stick out far enough to detonate the cartridge. I want to make sure that the bushing itself hasn't been pushed back into the bolt face or breech face. And I think you can all imagine that if that whole bushing countersinks deeper into the breech face, when the primer backs up into that countersunk hole, again, primer sitting back, when you go to pull the trigger, it rotates, that primer can't get out of the countersunk hole. So that's one thing I want to look for, and that's pretty simple to do. Just run a straight edge over it, and there's no gap between the breech face and the bushing. So all well and good. As a matter of fact, it almost looks like the bushing is a little above flush. So not a bad thing, which is good. We don't want to have to replace our bushing if we don't have to. So I am ready to head over to the little lathe to clean this up. And once I get it cleaned up and looking good, we'll put it back in the gun. We'll see what we look like as far as our protrusion and things of that nature. And I don't see anything wrong with the rest of the parts. The rebound spring is the correct length. Everything's here. I was worried that something was going to be really chewed up because of the scratch marks. But it looks like they just kind of run a stone over the top of the surface of a couple of them, and that was it. So there's nothing that's been ground on, clipped, hacked excessively. So let's get the firing pin doing what it's supposed to. I am going to have to address that timing. It's a little slow on the timing. It times good on a couple, but not on the other. So probably not going to bend the hand on this one. I'm going to do the method we try not to do if we can help it. But you'll see that in just a few minutes. Let's go deal with this firing pin. Okay, so I'm back from the little lathe, got the tip of the firing pin reshaped, polished, so it shouldn't pierce the primer now. Before we put this back in the gun though, I want to check, remember how we were wanting to check the distance between the back of the cylinder and the breech face at the firing pin and below. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to put a shell in that and then put a feeler gauge in behind. You know, if a 2/1000 feeler gauge goes behind the case at the firing pin, and that's 2/1000 gap. Below, we want that gap to be larger. Okay, so before we put a firing pin in, I actually am going to put a cartridge in there, live round. Cameraman's aware of it, I'm aware of it, no firing pin in the gun, it won't fire. Don't even have the hammer and the trigger in the gun. Once I'm done with this portion of it, then the live cartridge goes away. So let's get our feeler gauges out here. So that's 9/1000. It goes behind the cartridge. $12 goes with a little bit of feel. Let's see how tight 13 is. 13 is fairly snug. It goes. 14 is very snug. All right. So now I simply rotate that cartridge to the bottom and make sure that at least 14 fits. And it does with lots of play. I shouldn't say lots of play, fair amount. 16. So we already know that the distance between the back of the cylinder and the breech face at the firing pin is a tighter dimension than below, which it needs to be. So we know that that's not causing the cylinder to bind. All good. The live round goes over there out of the way. We don't have to worry about it at this point. Now I'm going to go back to putting the firing pin in the gun. So firing pin spring, firing pin. Slide it in place. Okay, with the firing pin started, I can push it in and slide the pin down into place. And now I'm simply going to put the hammer in real quick. So the firing pin does protrude. How much absolute protrusion do we have? Oh, tons. So I think that's probably going to be okay. I'm going to have to test fire it regardless. So at this point, put our frame safety in place. Make sure our trigger strut is in position. All well and good. Our rebound slide. Hammer, our mainspring, sorry if my elbow's in the way, guys. It happens. All right, well, I'll make some notes that this shim is in here, and I'll contact the customer to find out, hey, is this a defense gun? You're using this backup for grizzly bears? What, you know, it's a dirty, hairy gun, Smith Wesson 29, 44 mag, so we want it to, we've got to figure out what it's being used for. If it's just a fun gun and he's not using it for defense, then I can leave that in there. I'll have to make a phone call, but since it was in there when we received it, I'll put it back in for now. And if at a later date, after I talk with the customer, we determine that it needs to be removed, then I'll just simply pop that out of there. Cool. Okay, so the last thing we need to worry about is the timing. So I got to figure out which ones time and which ones don't. So that one does not. Mark that flute. That one does not. Those two are good. So now I know which four are slow. So those of you who've had the pro course know that you can bend the hand, put in a wider hand, and that'll time. Well, if two of them time already, you put in a wider hand or bend the hand, they're going to be extra tight. So now you're going to be in there modifying the ratchet pads by filing on them. So instead of doing that, we're going to leave the two ratchet pads that are correct, we're going to leave them alone, and we're going to widen the other four. We're going to thump them just a little bit. I'm only going to do it on one, and then we're probably going to wrap this up as far as I'm going to be ready to go test fire, and we'll go from there, because I'm pretty sure we've figured out what was causing the cylinder to bind, which was the original complaint, corrected several things there, and I'll be ready to go test fire. We have good barrel cylinder gap, so we know that's not the problem. That firing pin was a definite problem. And then the center pin being gummed up, and that whole affair, that the cylinder didn't rotate like it should. So once I get through timing this, and we're going to show you, I'm going to show you how to do it on one, one ratchet pad. You don't need to watch me to do the same thing on all four. Then we'll probably kill the cameras, head off into the sunset. All right. So we're going to go over here to the vise. I widen the vise so I can set the cylinder in here. All right, so this is the first flute that I marked with the Sharpie marker. Okay, so it lined up straight with the right-hand side of the gun. So the ratchet pad that's slow, that was indicating that that one was slow, will not be the one that's straight above it, but the one right above that. So here's the blue flute that's indicated. Right here's the ratchet pad I need to work on, not this one, but this one. And I need to make it a little wider. So a flat punch, angled slightly, give it a little thump. Doesn't take much. Now I got to check it in the gun. By swelling that ratchet pad, when the hand hits it, it has to push rotate the cylinder further before the hand can slip past it. So that one's still slow. That one's still slow. This one should be good. No mark in the flute. This one should be good. No mark in the flute. The next one's the one I worked on. Timed up. So you can see I didn't hit that punch very hard. Just enough to move just a little teeny bit of metal. That way I'm not going to be filing on any of the ratchet pads, because if I bent the hand or put it in a wider hand, then the two that timed now would not time, and the cylinder would rotate and lock up, and the hand couldn't slide past it. So I'd be looking at shaving off material of those two ratchet pads. By doing the thump, you saw me dink, And it actually takes more time to explain it and show you than it would be to just do the 4. Bang, 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 bang. Put it in the gun and away we go. So I think we've figured out exactly what was causing the cylinder to bind up on this particular one. I'm going to put it back together. I'll time those other 3 cylinders, put it back together, and then I'm going to go shoot it. Okay, well, I think we've got everything done that we can do here in the shop. We're going to get this bolted all the way back together and head out to the range. We'll see you there. So we came out to the range on the one day this week that's supposed to be good, and as you can see, man, we hit it on the... I'm going to buy a lottery ticket when I go home because it's clear blue sky today. It was raining yesterday. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. I know you probably really don't care. I'm just telling you, man, we hit it good. Got a good day to test fire. So we have our Smith Wesson 29 that the cylinder was binding up. So I got 6 rounds in it right now, and after I shoot these 6, as long as everything functions correctly, I'm going to shoot 6 more. Ears on, range is hot. Oh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I was thinking. Double check to make sure that was the last shot. It is. Shells come out. Cylinder spun free. Take my ears off so I'm not yelling at you. Cylinder spun like it was supposed to. I think we got her fixed. Got her whipped. Go back to the shop, price it out, call the guy, have him send me some money, and we'll see you over my shoulder next time.
If you want to learn real gunsmithing and see more videos like this, be sure and like and subscribe so you don't miss out. If you're interested in training to be a real gunsmith, go check out the AmericanGunsmithinginstitute.com, or for your own firearms training, AmericanGunsmith.com.